Hello, YouTube. So I was in a debate last night with a gentleman named Justin Seegers, who I didn't know this at the time, but he's like a guy, like a well-known presuppositionalist, um, who I found out later argues side by side with Saiton Brunke. So that's interesting. We argued the subject of morality. Um, there were definitely moments where it felt like pulling teeth, right? um, uh, there were moments where I did feel up against the ropes. I'll concede that. It was it felt like the end fight in Rocky Four. I defended something like proposed and defended sort of what I would think of as an anarcho-Kantian ethics. Um, and I don't know. I felt like after the fact, what Dustin accused me of was arbitrariness and inconsistency. Um, I at a certain point just decided to defend myself against the allegation of inconsistency. Um, and I'm and towards the end, I at least had Dustin admitting like, okay, you're being consistent. So that I take as a victory. Also, if you go back and watch the tape, pretty much everything that pretty much every point I raised was conceded to me, right? And then after that, pretty much every objection that was raised against me, I was able to swat away. Um, I didn't feel like I was being arbitrary, but I will say that within that frame, I don't think that the presuppositionalists who were watching it were convinced that I wasn't being arbitrary. That's fine. There were definitely, and Dustin was a perfect gentleman actually. He wasn't a belligerent guy. It wasn't like watching. I mentioned that he debates alongside Saiton Brunke. It wasn't like watching something like that. He was a class act through and through. But uh, there were definitely moments where he felt like he was trying to sink his teeth in anywhere that he could, and he just had nowhere to do that. Right, there were moments where I just felt like he was throwing out things that you know that sounded good to see if anything would stick. Right. In some sense, I think that there were moments where uh, his it it felt like for him any stick to beat the atheist with is good enough, right? There were moments where I felt like his he stopped being like selective in his arguments and just started to try and like go for the throat as much as possible, right? Um, I mean, I don't know. You guys can watch and evaluate what happened. Again, on rewatching it, um, every point that I made at some point was conceded to me, and every um, objection that was levied against me, I was able to bat off. Right. So that's that's a victory as far as I'm concerned. I'm happy with the way that event went. So again, check it out. It's on Bible Thumping Nuts channel. Um, the people who have checked it out have, at the very least, said that it was a classy endeavor. Um, uh, and yeah, have a good night.